Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. It's nice to see you all. Did you miss me last week? Those of you who did not attend my webinar, did you miss me? Did you miss story time? Well, here we are. We're back with story time. It is Saturday morning, the 15th. I just checked. The 15th of May. 4 days to go. We're on countdown, as my grandson would say. 4 days to go. Countdown, countdown. Yes, you might think I'm referring to my birthday, but I'm actually not really, sort of, but I'm actually referring to the fact that it will be 25 years on the dot, 4 days in 4 days' time, the official, um, what is it, publication of the Eagle of the Rose. But before we go into that, first of all, I'd like to say good morning to my spirit guide, Grey Eagle, who, as always, is standing to my right side. And yes, he's been talking to me, and I've been talking to him, and we can't decide what story to tell you. But when we do, it'll just come out there. I'd like to say good morning to Chris. Good morning, Chris.
Morning, Rosemary. Good morning, everyone.
So, I'm still undecided. I'm getting a little nudge. I could have said I'm getting a poke in the side. I get tickled inside, actually. I get a little tickle in my ribs there. It's going to be one of those mornings. I can feel it. It's going to be one of those days, isn't it? I can feel it in my bones. All right. So, yes, everybody. So, welcome to story time. But before we go into story time, I would like to actually remind you all again, as if I haven't reminded you every single day for the last 15 days, because that's how many days there have been in May. For the last 15 days, you will have seen me around, if you've been watching, every single day, and sometimes twice a day. And Chris and I, are you exhausted, Chris?
I wouldn't say exhausted because much of this is really inspiring and uplifting, but boy, have we been busy.
We have really been busy, yes, because we've been inundated with emails. Or Chris, I should say, not we. Chris has been inundated with emails, which we love to see. We do love to hear from you. And we do encourage you to email us, which reminds me, if you want to email us for any reason whatsoever, here is the email address. You can write to Chris, Kris, at rosemaryaltea.com. So before I begin this story, because I've still not quite made up my mind, although I think Grey Eagle's made up his mind. All right. So before we get into this story, we have 4 days to go before the big bang, so to speak, before and I shall wake up and I shall be 1 year older on Wednesday, the 19th of May. But more importantly than that, I think, is that it is the official first publication of the Eagle and the Rose. And I have to tell you, I've had so many people are sort of coming out of the woodwork. People I've not heard from in years. People who, who I knew way back. I remember, sort of having the book published, being in America and sort of doing the rounds, sort of going from town to town, city to city, getting on a plane, off a plane, on a plane, off a plane, and so on and so forth. Now that was exhausting. That was absolutely exhausting. But of course, I was younger then. I was 25 years younger then, wasn't I? But it's odd because, all of this was going on in America, and we had at every book signing, we had crowds and crowds and crowds of people would come just to hear me speak. The publishers, Warner Books, didn't quite know how to handle it, and certainly the publicity girls did not know how to handle it, and we were all a little bit taken aback and a bit overwhelmed at the amount of people and the poor storekeepers, I have to tell you, were certainly not used to the crowds and crowds of people who used to come. And of course, the more we went on tour and the more TV shows I did, and the more, we were out there doing all of this, the more people would hot foot to the next store where I was where I was going to be signing books, because of course, you know, most authors, they go to a bookstore, they get the bookstore people give them a stack of books, they sit behind a table, they sign the books when people come in, people buy a book, you sign the book, and then you say thank you very much, and that's it. However, with me and book signing, it was a very, very different thing, because people came to hear me speak. So the book signing was sort of a secondary thing to do. We would arrive at a bookstore. We'd hardly be able to get in there sometimes. We'd have to sort of push our way through. And then, you know, people would want to hear me talk about my work, talk about my life. And of course, as we were talking about what happens, and as we were talking about the spirit world, and as Greg and I were standing there and explaining to everybody what we did, well, you know what happens, don't you? When you can't put me in a crowded room and not expect something to happen. So, of course, during the course of the bookstore signings, I would give messages. I'd see a person standing over there, and that's them, and that's them, and before you knew it, lots of people in the audience, lots of people who come to sign the books were getting messages as well. So now the bookstore had to contend with a crowd of people, often crying, sniffling, emotional, um, and then we would sign the books. So it was an unusual thing, and it was. It was not so much unusual for me, because this was my first go around, remember, so I didn't know what to expect. But for the publishing house and for the people who had to organize the tours and so on, um, you know, it was a very different and an incredible experience. Some of the experiences that I've had over the years are very believable, and you know, and especially if you believe in the spirit world, as I do, and connect with the spirit world, they are more than believable. But there are some experiences which even I having experienced them, even I being present, have had to question. Hold on a minute, is this real? Is this real? Is it? Could it be? Is it possible? So, once upon a time, here we go into the story. So, once upon a time, and oh yes, and we were in England. You see, we've decided. So now we're on track. Gregor is laughing at me because I'm doing as I'm told. I thought I could not do as I was told. I thought I could choose the story, but apparently I'm not going to choose the story. Gregor's going to choose the story. So yeah, well, I suppose we could. Yeah, he's suggesting maybe we could tell two stories, so you never know what's going to come out here now. So, once upon a time in England, many years ago, I had first began to take in clients, and it was an odd thing, really, because I never felt in the beginning that I quite knew what I was doing, and probably didn't know what I was doing actually. And you know, so I went on holiday. I went on holiday to Spain. It was a great holiday. I had a fantastic time. It was the first holiday that I'd ever been on my own with a group of girls. And we just had a fantastic time. And when I came back from that holiday, I had to make a decision. And the decision was, should I now begin this work? And when I say begin this work, I mean, should I now take clients? Should I now be offering my services? What should I do? So I had no money, remember. I had my friends Paul and Irene Denham, who were great. They were really great and really helpful. But none of us could really afford any advertising or anything like that. So I decided that we would put in a little tiny advertisement for you Americans who don't know what an advert is, a commercial thing, you know, little thing in the paper, right? And it was something in the way of about 3 short lines, and it said something. I wish I'd have kept it now. You know how it's sort of, you look back, and it said something like, spiritual medium, phone number, and you know, call this number for appointment, something like that. It was very sketchy. It didn't really say what I was going to do, and so I got my first client, and I'm going to tell you that I was so nervous and so trembly, and so I was also very young at the time. Anyway, so I remember sitting with this lady, and you know, and we had a great time. She had a great consultation, and afterwards she said to me, you know, Rosemary, I nearly didn't come to you because you know, I didn't think you could be any good. And I said, what do you mean? You know, what do you mean? She said, well, you don't charge enough. She said, I thought, she can't be any good. She doesn't charge very much. She said, but you put your prices up. And so, of course, over the years, or 2, 3, 4 years and so on, I would sort of put my prices up a bit more and a bit more. And it seemed that, and this is ridiculous, I know, to say this to you, but it seemed that the more I put my prices up, the more people kept coming. And pretty soon I had a waiting list of a year, and pretty soon I had a waiting list of 18 months. And you would think to yourself, perhaps, who in their right mind is going to book an appointment 18 months on and then keep that appointment? You would be amazed, because very rarely did we have anybody cancel. And if we did have somebody cancel, it was because something had cropped up and they wanted to rebook. So, you know, so here it was. So over a period, I sort of got used to it. I would sit in my little study in the little town of Epworth, where I lived in the north of Yorkshire. And so, you know, and I take clients, and it became, let's say it became the norm. Samantha was still at school. So, you know, I tried very hard to either do this during the day when she wasn't around, or when I did, you know, when I didn't have to I had to pick her up from school every day. Of course, it was just the two of us. So, you know, doing this, sort of trying to fit it in during the day between being a mummy, because once you know, school ended, that was me done for work, because I'm a great believer in being a hands-on mum. And I was lucky enough to be able to find something to do, the kind of work to do that I could be that hands-on mum. So, so either I did this during the day, or more often than not, and especially to accommodate other people, because other people were working as well, I would start at somewhere around 8 o'clock when Samantha went to bed. I would stay with her. We'd have dinner. We'd have, you know, a little bit of TV. She'd go up to bed. If she was, as she got older, I put a TV in her bedroom, so that if she wasn't ready to go to bed yet, she could watch a bit of TV. But I was then working, and I would work from somewhere in the region of sort of 8 till 10 at night, 11 at night. It was not unusual for me to sort of stagger out of my little study at 11 o'clock at night, thinking, oh gosh, yeah, it's exhausting and I'm tired, and so on and so forth. But having said that, the people that came, and the messages, the people that came from the spirit world, it was so overwhelmingly fantastic that and every message, pretty much every single message, was fantastic. And of course, then I also started helping people. We organized a healing center, and I took students in, and so on. So everything, it was work, and it was really, really hard work, and it was long hours. But the driving force was this wow factor. Every time I gave someone a consultation, every time I gave a message, there was another wow factor. So here I am, and in my sort of early 30s now, working away like this. And, you know, every client that I had was amazing. Well, one day we had this lovely lady. I don't even remember her name. I bet she remembers me far, far more than I remember her. But she came in, she sat down, and she told me she might have said something like, I'd like to talk to my mother and my father. I don't even remember what she said. But she wanted to know, and it was one of the few in those days, because we're going back now into the 80s, it was one of these few, very few uh, clients who wanted to know about spiritual growth. It wasn't a big thing in those days, remember. And she wanted to know about spiritual growth. And she told me that, it was her spiritual, the spiritual side of her life was very important to her. And so I'm sitting with her and I'm talking to her, and I suddenly look down and she's got her hands folded in her lap, and I suddenly look down and I see a wedding ring on her finger. Um, but it's not gold, it's silver. It's a silver, what looks like a wedding ring. And I look again and it isn't there. And I look again and there it is. And I look again and it isn't there. So I'm obviously seeing or being given a message from someone in the spirit world. And I'm thinking, wow, I wonder what that's about. And as I'm thinking, I wonder what that's about, my study, my little study, I love my little study, began to get brighter and brighter. And it's almost as if, there was like a ball of fire almost in the room. Uh, and that's how it seemed to me. And it was so bright, so bright. I had to squint my eyes and I could barely see. And as I was looking to the light and thinking, what's going on? What is that? Through the light, through this incredible light, I saw this figure, the figure of a woman. And I heard Grey Eagle say, Mary, this is Mary. And so as I'm seeing all of this, of course, I'm also describing it to this young lady sitting next to me, who immediately started weeping. So I reached out and I held her hand, and as I held her hand, I took her hand. Again, I saw the wedding ring. First it was there, then it wasn't there, then it was there, then it wasn't there. And I'm thinking, what is going on? And I still couldn't figure it out until this figure coming through the light became clearer and clearer to me. And I thought, this cannot be. It just cannot be. I'm not a Catholic. I was not brought up with learning anything about Catholicism, or the fact that Mary is the head of the church. We're talking about Mother Mary now, the Virgin Mary. So I wasn't certainly not expecting anything like that, and not even looking for it. And if I were to be looking at that time for a spiritual teacher, then it would be Christ. Absolutely, it would be, because that's who I got to know as I was growing up. But remember, this wasn't about me, and this wasn't for me. And I looked, and I could see the Virgin Mary, and I kept thinking to myself, no, you're imagining it. It can't be real, except that not only was there this incredible white light surrounding this figure, there was also this unbelievable warmth, this unbelievable feeling of witnessing something that was so powerful and so pure and so incredible. It leaves me speechless even thinking about it now. And I remember I am holding this young woman's hand sitting with me. I have to say she's probably older than I was, but I remember holding her hand and whispering to her, because when you go into a church and you feel that overwhelming sort of sense of something, something godly, something pure, something you don't want to speak out loud because you might disturb whatever it is you're feeling, so you whisper. And I remember turning this lovely lady and whispering to her, I think we have the Virgin Mary. But even as I'm saying it, I'm obviously not believing it, because I can't believe it. Because why would you believe it? Because it's just too incredible to be believed. And this lovely lady gripped my hands and she began to pray. And I was speechless. And I'm looking to the Virgin Mary and I'm saying to Gregor, what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do here? And I put my arms around this lovely, lovely, lovely girl who was sort of sitting next to me, and put my arms around her. And we sat there quietly for a few minutes, and this vision of the Virgin Mary was still there. She was still in my living room, standing in my study, should I say. She was standing in my study. But I was so overwhelmed and so disbelieving. You know, sometimes something is so disbelieving that you don't even believe your own eyes. And I'm thinking, and what do I do? And then, uh, again, unbelievable, the Virgin Mary began to speak. Now, yes, she was speaking to me, but she really wasn't speaking to me. She was speaking to this lovely, lovely little creature sitting next to me. And she was telling her that it was all right, and that she mustn't worry, that she'd made the right decision. And I'm thinking, again, I didn't know what anybody was talking about here. And then again, the Virgin Mary placed a ring on this girl's finger and said, "You were married to Christ and now not married to Christ, but yet we still love you and you are still a part of us." And this poor young woman sitting in my study just completely broke down and held on to me, and I held on to her. And it continued, and the messages from the Virgin Mary, of all the people who I would expect to come and talk to us, the messages from the Virgin Mary were incredible. And it transpired that this lovely girl next to me had gone into a nunnery and was studying to be a nun. And for whatever reason, she was there for quite a while, and then for whatever reason, just before she was about to take her final vows, she changed her mind, and she decided that she wanted to do something else instead of being in a nunnery. She wanted to serve God in another way. And that was, so then she left the church, no longer married to Christ, not having taken her final vows. But this is why I kept seeing the ring on her finger and then not on her finger. Then it was on her finger, then not on her finger. And it indicated her questioning, and should I or shouldn't I? Is this the right thing for me or not the right thing for me? The Virgin Mary stayed in my little study, not for me, but for this wonderful, wonderful young lady who was working in a spiritual way. She was training to be a nurse, and she was planning on traveling and taking her nursing skills with her around the world. And it was just one of the most amazing things that I've ever witnessed. As I looked at the Virgin Mary, every time I looked at the Virgin Mary, there was this beatific smile on her face. Beatific is the only way I can say it. There was a peace and a gentleness and a calm which was so inspiring. And all the way through this consultation, I could barely speak above a whisper, because it was so reverent, it was so holy. It was, I felt as if I was, I don't know, standing on the mountaintop with Moses, something like that. I felt as if I was in this weird ethereal place, but yet it was real and solid. and everything that was happening was real and solid. After we had had this experience, I went and made both of us a cup of tea. I have to tell you, we could have done with something stronger. And it was then that this lovely girl told me her story and told me her history. And she told me that how, you know, she knew that she knew at some point that it wasn't the right path for her to be in a nunnery for the rest of her life. She didn't know how she knew, but that she'd had doubts and she'd felt, you know, should she or shouldn't she? And the idea, the very fact that the Virgin Mary had come to her and said to her, it is okay. You don't, you know, your decision is a good one. You can do much more work outside of the nunnery. You can be more useful outside of the nunnery than you can within. You don't need to go that route. And so she had a message from the Virgin Mary. But although the Virgin Mary never said to me, good, you're doing a good job. She never gave me a message. She wasn't there for me, and that's as it should be. She was there for this beautiful girl with this such a spiritual and beautiful soul. She was there for her, and but I felt, you know, uh, even though I knew that the Virgin Mary hadn't come for me. Why would she? I didn't know that well anyway, and you know, she's I mean, I guess she's special. And for all of you who are Catholic, who are listening, yes, I guess she's special. But to me, she was special because she was the mother of Jesus. But that's about it as far as that goes for me. Do I sound irreverent now when I'm saying this? I'm just trying to explain to you through this story how it felt, because it was, I'm sure for this young woman, I'm sure that she's still talking about it. I'm sure that even after all of these years, she will never forget that experience. But also, after all of these years, even though it did not mean nearly as much to me as it did to her, I still remember that experience, and I still remember how privileged I am. And it reminds me, and every single day it reminds me. And when we had our webinar last Saturday, and yeah, all right, we sat for 3 hours, and all right, I talked to the spirit world, and all right, I gave messages, and I talked to this person in the spirit world and that person in the spirit world, and they came through to use me as their voice so that they could give their families uh, a message, that they could let their families know through me that they were doing well. And you know, so every day when I do this, it reminds me of the privileged position that I am in, almost being a voyeur into other people's lives, and being a voyeur into other people's hurts and sadness, and being a voyeur into other people's joy, uh, often explosive joy, when they receive a message that means everything to them. And in this particular story that I'm telling here, um, even after all of these years, more than 20 years, um, can you imagine uh, being that person who stands on the sidelines, who is a part of it because it's necessary that they become a part of it, but yet also you're a voyeur, you're entering something special that has nothing to do with you, but has everything to do with the person that you're trying to give a message to, the people in the spirit world who are trying to give messages. So this was one of those incredible and special experiences of the many, many hundreds, if not thousands, of experiences that we can tell stories about. One of the reasons that that I decided, or that Gregor decided, that I should tell this story, and I didn't realize this until Chris mentioned it to me. She tells me that the month of May is Mary Day. If you're a Catholic, you know what that means. Of course, I'm not Catholic. I don't know what that means. Well, I didn't know what that meant, but I do now. During the month of May, I think the Catholic Church will choose some celebration, some ritual, and and I also didn't know this. I think this might be, if you think I'm wrong, correct me. I think this might be the origin of the Mayday Queen. So when we see girls dancing around the maypole, and then we see somebody who is crowned the May Queen, I think the Catholic Church considers the Virgin Mary the May Queen. So how nice that we're celebrating, even with our celebrations, how nice that we're celebrating this special month, which is May Day. And so that, yes, and I think that concludes my story. So now I should say the end. Chris, how did you like that story?
Just about the time you're telling us that your client was weeping in her chair, I was weeping in mine.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
All right.
gosh, the energy you can feel just from the story that you're telling is enveloping. I can't imagine what, I think Jeff wrote it here. Beatific is a wonderful word to articulate the awesome glow of love and more. That must have been just so awesome.
Well, hi Jeff. Thanks for that. All right, Chris. Why don't we sort of go for the comments and the questions or whatever else it is that we have there.
All right. Mary Lou says that was an amazing story to share. She loves it. Sharon says, incredible story. Thank you for sharing.
Oh, you're welcome.
Jeff said, thank you, Rosemary, for this sharing. So grateful to know that we all are absolutely known by the spirit world and are loved unconditionally.
Oh, I think that's a really good way to put it. Thanks, Jeff.
Cheryl said, my goodness, I got goosebumps from this story and can almost see what you're describing. Let me see if there are anything else specific to the story. Maggie says, I did not know that. See, you learn something every day about Mayday.
Oh, right. No, I didn't know it either.
And then Carolyn says, what an honor to hear such a special, precious story. And then we start getting into other questions.
It is very special. It's, it doesn't happen very often. But it happens when there are angels around. I'm going to tell you what I'm talking about in a minute. It happens when there are angels around. It definitely happened. Many of you have heard the story of the earth, my lovely, lovely earth angel, Tomas. You've heard that. Oh, hello. Then we got Tomas here. So there we are.
Nice.
So didn't expect that either. So Claudia, Tomas is here if you're listening. So we don't often see that light, or I should say we. I don't often see that light unless there are angels, or unless there are earth angels, or unless we have, something incredible and spiritual. But it's like 1 minute the room is sort of normal. We put the lights on and it's okay, and then it's almost as if you think to yourself, where's that light coming from? And you're not quite sure where it's coming from. And I remember the first time I saw Tomas, I was sitting in another room in the house, and there are windows, a bank of windows all the way along one wall. And I thought, geez, the sun is shining through here so bright I can hardly see him. And there are no drapes up at the window. So I'm thinking, oh gosh, maybe I should think about getting, but by the time, even before I've thought the thought that I should get drapes, it got brighter and brighter. And it was sort of like, it's almost like, how can I put it? It's almost like, can you imagine the biggest, brightest candle flame, and somehow you've stepped into it? It's not just that you're surrounded by it. It's almost like you've stepped into it, and it's consuming and incredible, and it leaves you absolutely speechless. And it doesn't happen very often, but when it happens, it's like one of those, wow, you can barely speak, you can barely believe what you're saying, you can barely understand it, but it's incredible. Chris, carry on.
My dad,
regardless.
My dad, about a month before he died, He had COPD, so he was on oxygen and stuff. And I remember following him back into the bedroom and getting him resettled in bed. And he started to, like you were talking about, whisper. And he said, I had a visit. And I'm like, from who, Dad? From who? And he whispers, you know who. Like it was so sacred and so special, like you just said. It just brought me right back to that moment. So he had a visitation before,
Wow.
within that month before he passed. But
I think so many people are very fortunate in that it happens to them too. I think it's incredible, really.
yeah. Well, Chris says, I'm going to go into rosemary withdrawal in June. I won't know what to do with myself.
Oh,
because you're on every day right now.
Oh, I see. I'm thinking, what are you doing to you? What are you going to be doing to yourself? I thought you were going to go into a cave somewhere. Oh, we'll still be at Chris. We'll be still around. Trust me. We were actually talking this morning, and we have for the last 15 days and for the next however many days, 15, 16 days, we will be on every day doing something. And often we'll be on twice a day doing something. And we're loving it. But Chris said to me this morning, she said in April, she said, I thought it was such a great idea. Yeah, in April, I thought it was a great idea too. I still think that it's a great idea, but the amount of work, excuse me, the amount of work for the office, it like triples, which we're glad about. We're thrilled about it. But I don't think we were quite prepared for the amazing response that we've gotten from people. And I don't think we were quite prepared to see how people are reacting to what we're doing, which is a great thing. I mean, we love it. Trust me, we love it. And we want to continue it. And we will continue it, maybe in somewhat of a little bit of a different way. We will be having webinars with me helping people to learn how to become healers. And I was thinking this morning that I want to have a little panel of healers. My friend Kay in England, for instance, and Chris, of course, and Karen, another of my students. But we also have some new students too. So I'm thinking that we should have maybe a show with a panel of people, some who have recently been my students and some who've been my students forever and ever. I mean, wouldn't that be wonderful? Because then you would all get the chance to pick their brains and ask them questions. And I think that would be a great show. So we're going to be doing things like that. And we're going to be, sort of exploring some new ideas as well. We've had such a response from people, such an amazing response from people who are doing the bottom brick. And we are still looking for volunteers for the bottom brick. Now, if you haven't seen this exercise, you're wondering what she's talking about. We did the bottom brick we did yesterday with our lovely Bridget, who was fantastic and amazing. She volunteered. And last week we did the bottom brick with Josephine, who was also lovely and amazing. We are thinking of continuing doing it a little bit, certainly not every week, but certainly, maybe, I don't know, I'm thinking once a month or something. But so we're looking for volunteers. Now, this is not about you coming to see me and me giving you messages from the spirit world. That's not what we're talking about here. The bottom brick is about the walls that we build around ourselves, often from childhood. We have no self-confidence, or we have, or we're nervous, or we've had a traumatic experience and we don't know quite how to deal with it or how to get over it. Or we perhaps just feel less than we should and unsure of ourselves, and we don't quite know how or why that happened. And so we're looking for volunteers to go through that exercise with us. So if you are interested, go and take a look at yesterday's show. You'll find it on YouTube or Facebook or somewhere. It's called The Bottom Brick, with me, of course. And you can see how it unfolds, and you can see what we're looking for. And if you'd like to volunteer, I promise I will treat you gently. Not necessarily too gently. From time to time, I might push you a little bit, but I'll always do it gently. I'll treat you gently. You know, it's an opportunity for people to sort of go through this exercise, learn about themselves. And as Bridget said, I think yesterday, she said after we'd done this, she said, I cannot believe how free I feel. It's as if everything's come off of my shoulders. She said, I just feel so free. And so, you know, so go check that out. And if you're interested, email us Chris, Kris, at rosemaryaltea.com, and put in your subject line, you know, the bottom brick. And then we know what we're looking at. So we're going to be choosing people for that. What else are we going to be doing? I'm going to maybe demonstrate sometime next week. Right, we're into next week, aren't we? I'm going to be demonstrating an exercise that I like to do with people, and it's an exercise that I can show you all how to do, which is so healing. It's so healing, so freeing. If you do it as I described that you should, it is so healing, it is so freeing, and it is so enlightening that it's a healing exercise all on its own. We may be doing that because on Wednesday we're going to be having our Wellness Wednesday. So I may be doing that on Wednesday, or we'll see what happens. Why would I tell you now? Why not keep you sitting on the edge of your seat in anticipation, wondering what we're going to be doing? And so, you know, we'll be doing all sorts of things. So, Chris, there'll be no need for withdrawal. Don't worry. We'll still be around. Maybe not quite as often. Maybe we'll be around, but you might have to pay a little bit of money to join in these events and have this tuition, because, you know, as much as I like to spend, and we've spent the whole of May doing this, as much as I like to spend time with you, I do have to pay my bills as well. Just we have to do it real, don't we? And I'm also thinking of continuing our cooking shows, because everybody's loving the cooking shows. I can't tell you actually what somebody left a message yesterday when I said I'm going to be making a creme patissiere, and then I changed it and I said maybe I'll make a creme anglaise, and somebody bleeped a naughty word which we're not going to say, but it was so funny. We laughed like crazy. Unfortunately, it came in just as we switched off. This little comment came in. Oh, the menu change, question mark. We laughed and laughed. So tomorrow I'm actually going to either be making a creme anglaise, or I'm going to be making a creme patissiere. There's a little tiny difference between both of them, not a lot. One uses half and half cream. One uses full fat milk and corn flour. So anyway, little tiny difference, but not much of a difference, and the process is simply the same. It's really great. So anyway, so that's what we'll be doing tomorrow morning, and I'll be showing you how to make some little delicious pastries with some phyllo pastry, and maybe oranges, or I don't know, maybe oranges or maybe cherries, who knows. Oh, I'll decide maybe tomorrow. But we will be doing things like that and continuing to do things like that. So Chris, you may be having withdrawal, but we'll still be there, we'll still be around, and I'll still be intruding on your lives, and we'll definitely be continuing our off the cuff, because we love off the cuff and it's fun. Chris.
Vicky's on, and I think Vicky has been there since the early days. She says, "Yay, the Epworth days, such fond memories."
Well,
I know she sent us something in email that eventually we may get to. Miriam from Germany is on.
Hi, Miriam.
Having a question. When you went to Egypt, to the pyramids, could you or did you see or talk to the ancient people?
When I went into the Great Pyramid at Giza, I actually decided I wanted to go inside. Egypt for me was my visit to Egypt was very, very special, and I had some amazing, amazing encounters in Egypt. Um, but it was also it was the most one of the most special experiences, but one of the most awful experiences as well. So it sort of had that double-edged sword. So I remember going into the pyramids, the Great Pyramid, the biggest of the three at Giza, which is just outside of Cairo, and as you're going in, and you don't sort of walk into the pyramid and it's just one big room in there. It's an amazing structure. You go in and there's this sort of very small door, and you sort of go in, and it's like a slope that sort of goes up but also goes in at the same time, so it's gradually going up and gradually going in. And there are wooden slats along this sort of almost like a pathway, and you have to bend almost double because it's very low. So it's a very narrow passageway, and you're literally crawling along this passage. And luckily, there are these wooden slats that help you to get up there. And then you sort of go up there, and then you come to a little space, like a little landing area, and then you sort of go left or right, depending. And there's another passage, and you crawling up that, and you can get easily very, very, very claustrophobic. And then you come to a landing, and on it goes until you sort of and then you're actually, what's happening is very gradually you're going up. I mean, these things are huge. I have to tell you, these pyramids, one stone in the pyramid is taller than I am, and I'm 5'6", and there's still a few inches in left. And one of those stones, and there are dozens and dozens and dozens of stones, hundreds probably of stones to build these structures. Amazing. So you're going up and up and up, but you're also going in and in and in until you finally come to the heart of, or the center of, the pyramid, which is where the sarcophagus is. And I don't know what I expected. I shouldn't say you expect, because everybody's expectation is different. But you finally get up there, and I remember climbing up and talking to Grey Eagle and saying to Grey Eagle, because by this time, it took a while, by this time, I was really feeling claustrophobic. The passageways were so tiny and, of course, dark, and you couldn't see where you were going, and you had to bend. If I had to do it now, I don't think I'd ever straighten up again, because, being an older and so on, I don't think I'd be able to survive it. But then you come into this room, and it's very small, this room. It might be, I don't know, I'm not good on, maybe 8 feet by 8 feet, maybe. I might be exaggerating at that. And right in the middle is this sarcophagus, which is just, it looks like a concrete sort of tomb. It looks like a I don't know, like a concrete coffin, let's say, with no lid on it. And of course, there's nothing inside it, and it's sort of crumbling at one end. And there are other people, 1 or 2 other people in the room with you, who pretty soon, because there's nothing else to see, that's it. The walls are plain. There's no decoration. It's amazing, really. It's just a plain room with this sarcophagus right sitting in the middle there. And now, the worst thing about Egypt, and the worst thing about this particular experience, was that somebody had been in there and used it as a toilet. And I don't mean just peeing. And as we were in there, some little man came running up behind us with a brush and a dustpan. It's Egypt. So, it's an amazing place, amazing, but also not so amazing sometimes. And I could have easily let that ruin this experience. But the reason I went in there was because I was looking for energy, and I wanted to feel energy. And I wanted to see if I could feel the energy or connect with the energy of this place. And there was nothing. So I didn't get to speak to whatever king had laid in that sarcophagus, because there was nothing. It was like, okay then. And I'm thinking, all right, well, I guess, I tried, and I could feel nothing, sense nothing. There was nothing around. And we went back down, and we had to come back down again, down those sort of passageways and sort of crawling down, and we had to come down backwards. We couldn't go forward, we had to come down backwards. And so this whole process happened again. And we finally were just inside of the pyramid, where it was there was like a little, it was a bit wider, and I came down this final thing and standing there just before I came out, and I was so frustrated. And I said to Grey Eagle, well, what was that about? And as I said it and thought it, I saw, I don't know if you know, the symbol for black power is the fist, okay? And I saw this fist come right out of nowhere, bigger than life, and the word power. And I thought, okay then. And I still didn't feel anything, but I saw the fist for power, the symbol for power, and I saw the word, and I heard the word from Grey Eagle, power. Okay, that's what it's about. Well, we came out into the sunshine, and there were camels and all the rest of it. It was, so it's a great experience. It's a good experience. But did I talk to anybody in there? No. Did I see anything in there? No. Did I feel anything in there? No, except for this one moment as I'm coming out. Very disappointing. We went about our day. We did other things. We explored other places. We went to, we went to dinner, and then we went to bed. And maybe I shall tell you that story. I might have told this story before, but maybe I should tell that story. Well, it won't be next week, will it? Because Grey Eagle will be speaking next week. So I'll be shutting up, because we have our amazing webinar coming up next Saturday, which is Grey Eagle Speaks. But maybe the week after or something, if Chris makes a note, maybe I'll tell you what happened in the middle of the night when I was sound asleep, totally sound asleep. And I suddenly found myself standing, and in the middle of, there were two single beds. There was a dresser between the two beds. There was a window on the opposite wall and curtains, but there was a crack in the curtains, and you could see the street light coming in from. So I found myself in the middle of the night, standing, just standing between the beds. Now, it's very usual for me. I usually get up every night. I'm telling you some personal stuff now. I usually get up in the night to pee. I've always done it. It's always been that thing. I've never actually rarely been able to go to sleep at night, not pee in the middle of the night. But anyway, so I'm not thinking anything really much about it. So I'm thinking, I must have. So I woke up, and I'm thinking, what am I doing? But then I'm thinking maybe I need to pee or something. So, thinking all of that, and I can see every detail of the room, and I'm sort of, for some reason, I don't feel like I need to pee. So I sort of turn my head thinking, just get back into bed. And I turn my head, and there in the bed, I see me, my body. I'm in bed. I'm sound asleep. I turn and I think, oh, would you like to know what my first thought was? My first thought was, oh, this must be what it's like to be dead. I'll tell you the rest another time. Oh, am I naughty? But I did have spoken to ancients since then, but not on that particular day. But it was my very first experience of knowing, not that, I can't tell you it's my first experience of being out of my body. It was my very, very first experience of actually knowing, being awake for it, understanding it, and sort of living it in the moment, let's say wide awake. My etheric body, that body that is, that we use when we travel, when we do astral traveling, the etheric body, the spirit body, which is the same shape and size as our physical body. There it was. There I was. I was normal. I felt like me. But yet I saw myself in the bed, all snuggled up, sound asleep. That thought, oh, this is what it must be like to be dead. Isn't that amazing? I'm going to leave you with that. Yes, Chris. Any other questions? Any other comments? Have I stunned people into silence?
Oh, I am laughing because they're like, no, tell us the story now. Keep going. And we're right up against the 12 o'clock hour.
Do we have any other comments or any other questions that you'd like us to deal with? Or is that it for
Well,
today?
yeah, most of them are going to take your time to answer the questions. So I think this is probably a good time to stop.
Okay. All right. So, okay. So remember tomorrow, it could be creme patissiere or it could be creme anglaise, and there's very little difference. A little bit of cornstarch or corn flour, as we call it in England, uh, and instead of using half and half, we use milk. I'll show you how to do both. I'll talk you through it. Don't you worry about a thing. And I'm going to make one this afternoon. I'm going to make some, I should say, this afternoon, because you need it to set overnight in order to use it as I would like to use it. So anyway, that's what we'll be doing. I'm also going to make some little meringues. Would you like to know how to do those? Yeah, I can talk you through it. They take hours to cook, so I'm going to have to make them today too. But I'll show you how to do it. I'll talk you through it, and I'll show you what to do with them when we've made them. Aha! So, yes, so we're going to have a delicious dessert day tomorrow, and I'm just going to get fatter and fatter and fatter and grow bigger and bigger and bigger, and I'll explode on the screen one day if I eat all of that food. But we're going to have a fun time. I'm hoping again that my dad is going to be with me in the kitchen. I'm hoping that my brother will come. I'm not sure if he will or if he won't, but definitely Grey Eagle will be there with me. And so we will hopefully see you all at noon tomorrow, Chris. Is it noon tomorrow?
Yes.
Yeah, so we'll see you at noon tomorrow for Rosemary Altea in the kitchen. So join us then. In the meantime, please, all of you, watch for us. Monday is Motivational Monday. Tuesday is maybe off the cuff. Wednesday is
Wellness Wednesday.
Wellness Wednesday. Thursday is the Spirit World Sees All. Friday is the Bottom Brick. Or maybe I'll do the three chairs exercise. And Saturday, of course, we're leading up to. Oh wait, let's go back a minute. So Monday is Motivational Monday. Tuesday is off the cuff. Wednesday. Wow, Wednesday is that day we've all been looking forward to. It is the actual official date of the publication of The Eagle and the Rose, but it's also my birthday. And I thought that maybe I would, instead of telling you a story, maybe I'll get the book out and maybe I will read you a story from The Eagle and the Rose itself, because it is, after all, my birthday, so I can do anything I please. And you never know. I might be popping in and out on my birthday day. You never know what's going to happen, do you? You just never, ever know. So until I see you again, please, all of you, thank you so much for joining us. Chris, thank you for the great job you did today, as always. I'd like to especially thank Grey Eagle for being with us as well, of course. And please, all of you, have a very, very blessed rest of the day. And if I don't see you before, have a very blessed weekend, everybody.